Welcome to the November 26, 2019 Board of County Commissioners agenda setting and work session. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board, and we'll do introductions.
Time answer.
Gary Edwards.
Robin Hortz. Robin Campbell.
Romero Chavez, County Manager.
Thomasina Cooper.
La Bonita Bolmar.
And support staff.
Katie Johnson.
Megan Porter.
So welcome. We have an action-packed agenda today. We have two agendas to get through, this afternoon's agenda and then the one for next Tuesday, December 3rd. We have two public hearings this afternoon, and we also have this morning an executive session that we need to get through as well. And then at 11:30, I'm expected downstairs to the auditor's office to certify this month's election results. And so we're going to keep. I'm going to keep a steady pace going on this, so we don't get bound down, get our minds wrapped around the engine on this stuff. So we'll start with the homeless strategies update. Keely.
Good morning, Keely Merino with Public Health and Social Services. I'm here to give you an update. Hazardous weather, cold weather season has begun and is well in swing. We've got all of our shelters operating, though not all are operating at 100% capacity, again, which is still normal for this time of year. However, there have been some shelters that have taken on a few extra individuals beyond their capacity for the first time, such as St. Michael's was able to fit in 15 people above their 15 to 16 over last weekend, which is exciting. We've got a new person who's organizing it over there. So that's well in motion. Faith Adicott, our contractor who's been working on the point-in-time count, has made tremendous strides in our planning efforts for this year's point-in-time count. In 3 weeks, we're able to put together an eight-page plan. This year, we're expanding. We're engaged with some communities that have not yet been engaged with for many years, such as Cielo in Olympia, and then also Nisqually Tribe. So we're expanding our reach into populations that aren't normally represented or haven't been in the last few years in our point-in-time count. So we're pretty excited about that. We're also going to be expanding our youth count. So we've been engaging other agencies. Primarily in the last few years, it's just been Community Youth Services, Rosie's Place, that's been the epicenter of all the youth activities, but what we've found is that it doesn't generate more surveys from young people, and historically it's very difficult to find young people and count them during point in time. So we've engaged together, Pizza Clatch, Stonewall Youth, and other youth serving agencies to do a much broader reach for families and for young people experiencing homelessness. We've decreased our events to just streamline. We found that some of our events, such as Roof down in Rochester, we have an event, yet it doesn't generate many attendees. However, Rochester knows who its families are that are experiencing homelessness. So we're using another HUD methodology for some of our more rural areas where we'll be conducting a 7-day count. We've done that before, and what it is we'll have surveys at Roof for 7 days, and those surveys past the 23rd of January will ask, where did you sleep on the night of the 22nd? So we'll be able to ostensibly get a much more robust count of folks in rural communities. Yelm has an event planned. Lacey is just all over it and has an event planned for families, or they're planning one for families. They have their new outreach coordinator. His name is Mitch. He's just started a couple weeks ago. He and an officer from Lacey PD are taking on outreach. It's just a very exciting, very robust point-in-time count so far. So super excited about that.
Do we have a date for the point-in-time count?
Yes, it is January 23rd. You will all be invited to participate, and more news on that as we move forward.
When will the board have the opportunity to look at the questions?
I can send those over, what we have so far. They're still under draft. No problem.
And that's January 23rd. When will we be signing up for our locations? Like a week, 2 weeks before?
I believe in early January, second week of January, we'll really do the strong push to make sure that folks know. Just put that pin it in your calendar that the 23rd of January, that Thursday, will be a point-in-time count day.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it for me.
Questions, comments?
Renata Rollins sent out a video that to all the members of the RHC, and I guess because I'm an alternate, I was copied on it, and I thought it was really useful
Yes.
to understand the drivers of the increase since 2013 in homelessness, not the total problem, but why we've had this spike.
Yes.
And it really was able to knock out a lot of, there's a lot of theories milling around, and it was able to really knock out. So if you haven't seen that, you should take a look at it. And we can maybe get it to Commissioner Edwards too,
I'll share that.
if he didn't get it.
Yeah, very
It
good.
was from the state of Washington's Department of Commerce.
I have not seen it yet.
Any questions or comments?
I guess I'd only say that Keely's got a heck of a tough job, and good luck on your endeavors, because it's a problem, and
Thank you.
I don't think most people realize how serious this is if you're out there and what you're trying to fix, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioners, at the last update, the board agreed to send a letter to the First Christian Church. So I have a draft for you. I will be circulating after the meeting for your review and signature.
Thank you.
When does that need to get to the church? When does that need to be delivered?
When? As soon as you sign
Whenever
it.
we want.
There's no time limit on this, it's not like...
No,
Okay.
it's a thank you letter for them to open their facilities prior to the hazardous weather task force, hazardous
Okay.
weather time. So you may remember it was between October 27th and the 30th that we dip into freezing temperatures. And the period of the hazardous weather didn't start until November 1st.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Keely.
All right, thank you.
Next is, we're going to review the BoCC draft agenda for this afternoon's meeting, November 26, 2019. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. We'll have a Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Gary Edwards, and then an alleged approval of the agenda for this afternoon and the board meeting minutes from November 5th and the November 12th meetings.
Commissioner?
Yes,
If I may.
please.
This is your Tuesday, November 26th, the first time you have seen this agenda. So if there's any changes that you would like to see, I will bring those changes this afternoon for you to take a formal action and amending the agenda. So I will keep track of whatever changes you would like to see. I myself will like to introduce a couple of changes for your consideration. And again, those changes I will bring this afternoon for you to consider amending the agenda, and then you may consider approving the amended agenda.
Okay. Got it?
Got it.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Opportunity for the public to address the board. Are we expecting anything?
Well, you do have a couple of public hearings this afternoon. One is related to the Housing and Urban Development Plan, and the other one is related to the revenues associated with the 2020 budget. So we have received some public testimony related to the latter. So you may receive some public testimony this afternoon related to that item of the public hearing.
Okay, questions, comments? Nothing? All right, good. Thank you. Then we'll get into the the county manager's update.
I don't have any particular update for you today. What I would like to do is probably this afternoon just walk you through the director's report from last month and highlight a few items
Okay.
out of that report.
That takes us to agenda item number 3, consent items A through I. The first is 3A, and that's the treasurer, tax title property.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration is to authorize the county treasurer to enter into a private negotiation with Ms. Catherine Hudson related to a property that is a tax title. The size of this property is 0.08 acres and is located in the Cooper Point area. I just have a copy for you to give you an idea where that is.
Thank you.
Some copies here. So this property has been in tax title since 2004. They went out to auction, no bids were received, and that is the next step in which the auditor can engage into. That is the general location, and the back
This little
side
red.
is the actual property size. So turn the page. So the first map is just to give you the location, and the second map gives you the actual location of the parcel in more detail. And the third page gives you the proposed amount in which this property will be negotiated with this private owner. And again, the total cost will be $513. That includes all the recording fees and additional excise fees. This is a landlocked property, as you can see on the map. And I'd recommend for you to authorize the treasurer to get into a private negotiation with Ms. Catherine Hudson.
Is this adjacent to Ms. Hudson's property?
I
Don't
don't know.
Okay. Questions, comments? No? Okay. Thank you, Mayor. 3B, the Sheriff's Department sole source, no contract with Permitium.
Yeah, the Sheriff's Office is requesting for you to consider getting into the sole source. And this is related to a processing fees, credit cards fees related to weapons permits. So there is not really a transaction related to this. It's just allowing the Sheriff's Office to tap into the services as any other counties have in the region. And what they do is just, whomever applies for a weapon permit, they will pay $4 administrative fee and 30 cents per credit card, or 2.9%, whatever is higher. So it's really up to the applicant to pay the credit card fees if they choose to go through that transaction. And again, this is just to allow the Sheriff's Office to tap into those services, which will streamline the process of issuing weapons permit.
Anything? Okay. 3C, emergency services, an agreement with the U.S. Department of Interior for operation and maintenance of river gauges.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is continuing operations. We currently have river gauges that we maintain with the United States Geological Service, USGS, the Department of Interior. So this is a renewal of the annual agreement for us to maintain the gauges. The total cost of this agreement is $20,000, which CPED, Community Plan Economic Development, will share the cost of about $5,390, and emergency management share is $14,696. This is already approved in the 2019 and 2020 budget, and this is just a procedural aspect to go through the maintenance.
Okay, anything?
These are gauges.
On the chutes and the Skookumchuck rivers.
Different than the ones that we have our river gauge system through Chehalis Flood Authority.
It's different.
This is a different set of gauges.
Yeah, it's along the chutes and the Skookumchuck rivers.
Anything?
What budget is this coming out of?
The CPID budget is coming from the Water Resources Fund, and the emergency services is already included on the is general fund. That's funded by the general fund.
Well, and I guess why is that general fund instead of water-related, like stormwater or something besides general fund? Our general fund is really being hurt, and if there's any possible way that can be adjusted to some other fund, I would like to know if that's possible.
And that has been the traditional cost share, but we can certainly look as to what will be the possibility to
Is that
switch.
something that we have to approve today? Is that a time frame issue? Because if it can come out of some other fund, it helps us through our struggle.
So if you like to delay this item, then that will be an item that you may consider delaying, and that will be an amendment this afternoon.
Well, if we do that, is there a time frame up against this?
I don't believe so. I don't have any indication that needs to be done right away.
I
We
guess
can
I need
always
to
bring
find
that
out from my seatmates if they are so inclined.
Well, this is, so it expired in October 1. And how long, this is an annual renewal, how long have we been doing this? And has it always been coming out of general fund?
We have been doing this for the last 5 years, I believe. And again, it has been traditionally that split between the water resources and general fund.
And lastly, my final question, I'll get to Ty, is if we approve it today, does it have to come out of general fund, or can we approve it today and it comes out of another fund, the water, some type of a water resource type fund, if we can do that legally? Or by committing this today, is it committed to general fund?
Well, because the budget in which was approved has that splits already. So it will be something that I need to talk to Robin.
Okay.
Whether from the budgetary point of view, we can switch those amounts around. Because it's a line item on the budget.
Okay. Questions, comment?
No.
Do you want to deal it, just wait for an amendment this afternoon if it comes in? Or put this off to the future?
It's fine with me if Commissioner Edwards wants to explore what the options are. I'm fine with that. Doesn't sound like there's a detriment to us by waiting.
If it's not a time frame, I would prefer figuring out a way to protect the general fund. We are in deep trouble with their general fund.
So that goes back to, if between now and this afternoon, if Robin can sort this out, and it doesn't have to come out, no?
Not today. I can't work
Okay.
my magic that fast today. And I'm trying to look at the documents to see if this is grant funding. Where does the money come from that we use from the general fund?
Okay.
But I don't see it clearly stated in the AIS. So it's going to take me just a very small amount of time, but I don't have that time today. I apologize.
So let's just move this to the 3rd. All right? Thanks, Gary. That takes us to 3.
So this afternoon, I will walk you through all the different amendments that you're
Right.
considering, and then I will ask you to take a formal action.
I have no
on it.
doubt you're tracking. Thank you.
Just
3E, Commissioners approve a 1-year contract extension with LeMay.
We skipped one, I think. D.
I sure did.
Public Works.
D, Public Works, close
Ye-
petty cash change fund.
Yeah, this is for your consideration, is to close a petty cash account of $100, and this is, it was serving when we rent park fees, when somebody wants to rent a shed on one of our parks. Now the transactions are done via, credit card, so the need of having a cash available is not really needed. We haven't used it, so the request is to close the petty cash account, which only has $100 right now.
Okay. Anything?
No, it's good.
This is just a streamline for more efficiency for staff.
Yeah. It's just, it doesn't help just to have cash laying around if we don't need it.
Okay.
Now 3E, 1-year contract extension for LeMay.
Yeah, it's for your consideration to extend the contract that we have with LeMay to provide the recycling services here on all the county facilities. And this is, there have not been an increase from the 2019 costs. And the estimated cost in 2020 is $36,879 or $3,073 a month for those services. And again, this is to services that include the collection, transportation, and processing of recyclable materials collected in county facilities. And this is an extension of what we have.
Do we have choices? Is there,
Well, this is, we
are
just
there
exercised.
other servicers? that
We're
you-
just exercising the extension that's already in the contract. At some point, when the extensions outlined in the contract lapses, then we'll go through a request for proposals.
Okay, so the contract is structured such that...
Yeah, we can exercise those extensions.
And you said there is not an increase?
It's not an increase from 2019.
Okay.
Okay. 3F, Comcast franchise extension.
Yeah, you briefly had a conversation with Rob and myself last time in the setting related to the Comcast franchise agreement that we're currently negotiating. This franchise agreement is extremely complex, and that we have hired an outside attorney, Mr. Ken Feldman, who is helping us to have this franchise agreement, which includes the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. It has taken us a little more time than we were expecting in getting to this point. There is the federal government is changing some of the rules, which makes it extremely difficult to engage on negotiations when the rules of engagement changes almost on a monthly basis. And this particular proposal is for you to consider extending the existing interlocal agreement that we have with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater through May 31st, 2020. And also, as a result of that, extending the contract services with Ken Feldman on the same period, which is May 31st, 2020. That also, we're requesting to add additional $25,000 to cover the additional costs that we are dealing with Ken Feldman. And again, at least from my point of view, is very complex, and we're dealing with a very large entity, and trying to have them come to the table and having logical conversations becomes very tasking. But certainly we will continue to go through this process. And you know, the whole industry is changing. And that is also part of the obstacles that we're facing. Because the whole traditional cable services is changing and may be changing down the road. As a result, some of the revenues that we receive as a result of the franchise may also be reduced, perhaps changed as to how we collect those fees. So that by itself creates an environment that is very tasking to have a conversation with this big enterprise.
Is that why the 6-month delay then?
Yeah.
Changing technologies, but also the Fed's changing the rules as we go along?
Yeah, the FCC.
Okay, any questions or comments?
And where is the $25,000 coming from?
General fund.
General fund.
You didn't get to ask it.
That's okay.
Go ahead,
I'll do
Gary.
one follow-up, but I appreciate the commissioner's question. And is that already budgeted?
Yes. We are going to absorb this 25,000.
Okay.
All right.
The other thing to know about the franchise agreement, and the reason it's worth protecting, is this means major revenue to the county of, it had been nearly $2 million a year. Even with the reduced costs, it will be in excess of $1.5 million a year. But it's money well spent. There's a big return on investment.
Sounds like it. All right, 3G, appointment to Timberland Regional Library Board of Trustees.
This is a follow-up, a formal approval for your consideration to appoint Ms. Kathleen Varney to the Timberline Regional Library Board of Trustees for the term of November 26, 2019 to December 2023.
Really?
No, we've gone through this one.
Got it, okay. 3H, YCOM franchise.
This is related to another franchise agreement. In this case, is with Yelm Telecommunications, also known as YCOM. As a little bit of history, in 1956, Yelm Telecommunications received a 50-year telecommunications franchise agreement by the county, which expired back in 2006. The subsequent company, Consolidated Communications, sought a new telecommunications franchise agreement, and we have been in the process of negotiating the new terms of that franchise agreement. You held a public hearing on this franchise application back in February 19, 2019, and that is in accordance to RCW 36.55.040, where no public testimony was received, I believe. So this is, we finally come to the point of having this franchise agreement with Wycom, and the term of the franchise agreement that we're proposing for your consideration is only 10 years. 50 years is way too long.
Anything? Anything? Nope, good. And then 3I, Financial Services, approval of the voucher list. Any questions or comments regarding the vouchers?
No.
My questions have been answered, so thank you very much, Robin, for that. That takes us to department items. Agenda item number 4, Public Works, a contract with Foster Garvey.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration, this is related to the request for proposals that we're going to be issuing, or perhaps for your consideration to issue, related to this very complex services that we have in solid waste that will include collection, transfer stations, and transportation and disposal of all the solid waste in the county. So there is a very complex issue, as you know, and I think this approach we as a staff like to take is to secure the legal services from an outside legal firm that has an expertise on those very complex contracts. They will guide us through not just for the request for proposals and in terms of the specifications, but also when we are in the position to select a new contractor. They will most likely be for the next 20 years. As you may recall, this has a potential to be a contract of over $300 million over the next 20 years. So it is important for us to put all the pieces in place to give us a transparent approach for you to feel comfortable in terms of the legal aspects of this contract. And again, this is for the Department of Public Works to secure the services from Foster Garvey and the particular attorney. In this case, I do have a name. Stephen DeJulia. Thank you, Karen. Oh, Karen's here. Stephen DeJulia, which has a lot of background and experience with this particular very complex projects and contracts. So this proposal for your consideration is to authorize the consultant services for up to $250,000 with 10% variation from that for a total of $275,000. So since this is a professional service for legal services, we don't need to go through a regular request for proposals or request for bids. The prosecuting attorney has the authority to deputize an outside firm. In this case, John Tour has done so already. So we have covered all the bases. The internal attorney who is going to be helping us to be as a liaison between the external legal services and the internal staff will be Rick Peters.
Okay.
So this attorney is chosen by the prosecutor?
Yeah. With the concurrence, suggestions by the Public Works staff, and the prosecutor has agreed on that.
Suggestions about what? By the Public Works staff?
About the firm, because we did the research as to what firm has the expertise to provide those services, with Rick Peters, obviously, along with it.
Okay.
Do you have any issues with that, or?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just surprising. I don't know what Public Works would know about the attorneys, evaluating the attorneys, but
No,
maybe
no,
they worked with attorneys in the past and they understand the issues that they're going to need advice on.
May not be evaluating the attorney,
Attorney.
may be evaluating other jurisdictions who have used their services for this type of contract. So you're right, the Public Works will not be in the position to evaluate the legal services of anybody.
Gary?
Just for the commissioner's sake, I did talk with several jurisdictions last week that are going through this same process, and I believe that's the firm they're using.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, for example, like an example of which jurisdiction?
Skagit County.
Skagit County is about the same thing.
Kitsap County.
There's Snohomish County just went through
Snohomish County,
last
I
year
think.
on the same process. So that's what what Public Works does, is see what other jurisdictions have used, what has been successful.
Is this a Seattle firm or?
I think it's, do you know?
I see a nodding head back there.
Yes, and I also, if I could add that
Will you come on up, Karen, please? And introduce yourself, thank you.
Karen Weiss, Public Works Department Finance Manager and Interim Solid Waste Manager. Just to your point, Commissioner Minzer, he was also the attorney that helped us with our last RFP for these same services. So he does have experience with the county itself and with our specific operations and situation. So
Okay,
this is
good to know.
past experience.
Thank you.
Anything further?
And solid waste dollars are providing,
Yeah, that's the tipping fees,
Within budget.
not out of general fund.
and is already included in the budget.
That's a good move. All right.
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That takes us to 4B, DOT participation agreement.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, is to enter, the department to enter into an agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation. Also note this is a participating agreement, and this is related to the roundabout project that we're working with DOT, as well as some of the Chehalis tribe and some of the private developers down in the Grand Mountain area, specifically located along Highway 12 and Sargent Road. We have been meeting for quite some time. I think finally we'll get to the point of determining how much each of those partners can financially participate in implementing the road infrastructure. In this case, is the first one that you will see is with DOT. At this point, the initial contribution is for $200,000 towards this project.
All right, anything?
I'm still.
Good. And I like our relationship with Chehalis tribe. That's good work there. All right, agenda item number 5, Public Health and Social Services, State Department of Children, Youth, and Family Interlocal Agreement.
Okay. I think I have this go backwards.
And we also have Gretchen in the room.
Yeah.
You want to come up?
Yeah,
Come
I
on
don't
up.
have my notes,
Gretchen,
I
thank you.
apologize. If Gretchen can help us on this, that would be good. Oh, right here. Let me frame it, and then Gretchen.
Come on, sit down, thank you.
So the purpose of this agreement is with the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Family, previously known as Washington Department of Early Learning. In this interlocal agreement is to fund community health nurses to deliver nurse-family partnership to the program to mothers eligible in Thurston and Mason counties. As you know, we provide those services to Mason County as well. The nurse-family partnership works with mothers to provide support, resources, and coaching to help families to provide the best possible outcome to those individuals involved within the program. Right now, this program will support just about 35 families in Mason County and 52 families in Thurston County. And the proposal for you is to consider an agreement, has a duration of July 1st, 2019 to July 31st, 2020. That will be the state's fiscal year, for a total amount of $632,050.41.
Anything, Ty?
This is money flowing, which direction? Our direction?
Our direction.
To provide the services
Yes.
from the state.
Yes, it's a renewal of a contract that we've had.
Gary?
I guess I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for your work in this area, and it matches my concerns with, kids are 30% of our population, but 100% of our future. And with all your work, hopefully we'll get it right, because our lives depend on it.
We're doing our best, we thank you.
Gretchen, does this include work into Lewis and/or Mason County
Just
with
Mason-
NFP?
Mason County.
Mason,
This is just Mason.
at Mason and Thurston.
But aren't you in Lewis County as well, NFP?
Yes, and if I don't want to confuse any of the issues, but we were successful with a grant application that we wrote in August. So once we get this contract approved, the state will send an amendment, so I'll be back in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
For services for Lewis County. So with that grant application, we are getting awarded $289,000 a year to add families in Lewis County. So I'll be back in a few weeks with that amendment.
So remember that, she'll be back. This is wonderful, and
We
thank
always
you.
like to see her.
Thank you for the information, that research paper you sent me last week, demonstrating the value of NFP with moms and such, and even prenatal, the incredible work that's being done that NFP provides mothers to stem off homelessness and fostering executive brain function in infants and such. NFP is just amazing, amazing. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right. 5B, Solid Waste Financial Assistance Agreement.
Yes, for your consideration, Commissioners, the Washington State Department of Ecology is offering the Public Health and Social Services Department second local solid waste financial assistance grant for the current biennium. This grant will support our environmental health, education, outreach activities of the community engagement, evidence, and partnership sections within the Child, Family, and Community Wellness Division of Public Health and Social Services. This particular grant is for $180,416, which requires a match of $60,138.67. The match, the local match, is coming from the tipping fees. That will be solid waste, and it's already included in the budget. The overall cost of this particular contract, which goes from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2021, is for $240,554.67. And Chris is here to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioner?
Can you could I ask Chris a couple questions? Could you just real concisely tell us what kind of education outreach this funds, just, give us some examples?
Certainly. Chris Hawkins, Program Manager with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and the Community Engagement Evidence and Partnerships team includes our environmental health education and outreach efforts. Jennifer Johnson is also here from the team in case your questions get to a level of specificity where I need some help. But I can tell you that this is an effort to continue some valuable work that we've been doing with child cares to provide those child care providers, child care sites with information on safer practices for their cleaning and other upkeep and maintenance of those child care facilities that protect the kids that they serve on a daily basis from exposures to more toxic chemicals in that care environment. So that's one element of this project, a fairly substantial part of it. Another is our effort with retail stores, so trying to provide consumers at that point of purchase with information about how they can choose safer products when they're purchasing things for home and garden, such as pesticides, cleaning products and the like, but a heavy emphasis on garden centers and trying to reach consumers with that information. We provide some training to store staff to help them provide that good information about safer products, safer practices. We have a series of publications that we do called Common Sense Gardening, as well as integrated pest management that we put out in the community. And we promote the Grow Smart, Grow Safe website, which I think you heard information about at the last Board of Health meeting.
Good, thank you. No, that's what I wanted to
Okay.
know.
All right, I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
5C, approved tobacco and vaping prevention regional contract.
Yeah,
With
for
other counties.
consideration, Commissioners, is for you to approve contracts with the Cowlitz, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, and Wahkiakum counties. Those counties are part of the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance Accountable Community of Health. And Thurston County is the lead in that program. This particular program is related to the Tobacco and Vapor Products Prevention Program, also known as the TVPPP of Washington State Department of Health, and aims to ensure reduction of the impact of tobacco and vapor products on the health of residents, particularly youth and young adults. This particular overall contract is for $118,930 and is a 3-year period. And again, this contract goes from July 1st, 2019 to January 31st, 2020. And each of those contracts have the specific dollar amounts associated with those. Each county has a specific dollar amounts associated with those individual contracts. And again, Chris is here to expand on the information and provide any answers that you may have to your questions.
Anything?
I guess I don't really understand the structure. I mean, what are we doing with all these other counties? Like, how is this working?
Great. Again, Chris Hawkins, Program Manager with Public Health and Social Services. We do tobacco and vaping prevention efforts, and we are the lead entity or agency for the 7-county Cascade Pacific Action Alliance region.
Okay.
So we are receiving the funds that Washington State Department of Health is intending to basically benefit that 7-county region. As the lead, we retain the large share of those funds for our own staffing of that coordination, but also to do things here in Thurston County and help protect the health of Thurston County residents. So that's Kateri. This funding source is funding a lot of Kateri's work on the local vaping policies and other outreach that we're doing on that. But we also have a duty to share with the other counties in the region and provide them with some resources to be able to carry out tobacco and vaping prevention. And so we've set aside some funding out of this total funding stream for those other counties. This year, we're proposing to split that funding into 2 halves of the year so that we don't run into a similar situation that we've had in the past where the other counties don't use all their funds and we're left with an obligation to keep those funds for them, but the funds don't get spent. So we're doing half of the year, $3,500 for those other counties through the middle part of the year, end of January of 2020, and then proposing to add, by amendment, the second half of the funds if the other counties need that second half, if they're demonstrating progress toward utilizing their funds fully. So this funds them to do similar activities to what we're doing here in Thurston County. It involves promoting cessation, trying to prevent youth initiation on tobacco and vaping, and also to protect the public from exposures to secondhand smoke and vaping. So same set of activities that we're funded to do, we're sharing the resources to help those other counties do the same.
$7,000 per county, basically, over the year. Okay.
$7,000 per contract for the year, along with, I forget how many other, Kateri had the information, how many thousands of dollars we spend a year in other PHSS programs for cessation, for prevention, for education. and we're fighting a monster.
There
Because
was no boundaries.
Philip
of-
Morris, the owners of Jewel and many of these other things, products, are spending $1 million a day in advertising. So we are like the salmon going upstream. It just drives me nuts how we're fighting it with all these little dollars, trying to save every life we can, which is worth it, of course. But good grief, we're fighting a monster. All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Number 6, IT. Authorize IT director to purchase stuff.
To provide the service from Cohesity. That's Cohesity.
Technical term.
This is related to backup systems that we need in the county. As a matter of background, Unitrans, that was the previous vendor, we currently have a contract with, has run out of storage capacity and has become labor-intensive for IT staff to continue to work with this vendor with the restrictions that this vendor has in terms of providing additional capacity. As we go, the data grows and we need to have additional backup systems. So over the last 6 months, IT, and the director is here, has gone through 4 different, has evaluated what will be the best possible vendor that can provide those services. The conclusion of that 6-month evaluation concluded on entering into an agreement with Cohesity, I think that's how it's pronounced, which it will provide the county with this, the functionality, customer presence in the local area, and is focusing more in the ransomware and cybersecurity, which is clearly needed in the county. This particular contract is for $217,500.77. That's the actual quote. And the cost of that is going to be paid by the internal rates, and it's already included on the budget. And Dennis is here to answer any particular questions you may have from Cohesity.
We hired Dennis to make these decisions, so I'm assuming he picked the right one.
Commissioner?
I guess just to clarify, internal rates on that expenditure is a breakdown of general fund and those other entities that are non-general fund. Everybody's contributing.
We have contributed already, so we have the funding for that.
Thank you,
Yes.
just for the viewers' knowledge, I guess.
You're here. Introduce yourself, Dennis, and you can step away.
Dennis Osorio, IT Director. I guess I
Okay.
just got to put in a snappy name on all the products and we're good.
Yeah.
And stick around, because 6B is yours also.
Correct.
Purchasing CenturyLink Network Circuit for Medic One.
Yeah, for your considerations, Commissioners, this is, as a matter of history, in 2018, Medic One implemented a new electronic patient care reporting, also known as like EPCR software. They provide services to 550 emergency management EMTs and 60 paramedics in Thurston County, among all the many different first responder units in the county. The primary service to provide to support this new system is was installed in the Medic One building, and so we need to develop a backup. And this proposal is to have another server be installed on the Tilly campus, on the emergency services side of the campus. This is needed to have a redundant service in case of emergency. And this contract is again for $79,200, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and this has already been approved in the budget, and it comes from the Medic One budget for 2019 and 2020. And Dennis is here to answer any questions.
Your question? You have a question?
And this has been approved by the Medic One Board,
Yes, it's recommended.
recommended by the Medic One Board, right? And I've just got a question about the $1,320 a month.
That was my question, so
What was
thank
that?
you.
What's that about? That doesn't, I mean, times 12 doesn't equal 79,000.
Dennis Osorio,
5
IT
years.
Director. It's
For
a
long-
5-year contract.
It's multi-year
Oh, okay.
contract.
Yeah, and that was the reason for the 5-year contract is we get a better rate. So if you
Got it.
multiply that out.
Thank you.
So, but that's a good question. So it is expected, since you have approved the budget for 2019 and 2020, and this is a 5-year contract, we will bring those for your consideration to add a line item for the future budget process.
Okay.
So,
Good.
but the contracts are 5 years pending your approval of the budget.
That was my question, thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
Agenda item number 7, county manager. And we will talk about our stuff,
Yeah.
activities and such, and then the county manager review our schedule. And then we move into the first public hearing at 3 o'clock approximately. The first one is a Public Health and Social Services public hearing on HUD 2018 evaluation report.
Yeah, for you, you will be receiving public testimony related to the 2018 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. The Public Health and Social Services and the county needs to submit to HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, as part of all the federal funds that we receive to provide services. This is a yearly process that we need to go through. And before you can, the county can submit this report, you need to hold a public hearing to give the public the opportunity to provide comments on that. Tom Webster is here. If you have any particular questions, I don't expect to have much public testimony. I believe we have not received any written testimony related to this particular public hearing, but you never know.
Any questions?
Is it kind of just statistics that are dialed up? Is there anything subjective in there that we would need to review or?
Hi, Tom Webster, Public Health and Social Services Program Manager for the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. So yes, it's a report on what we accomplished during the 2018 program year. And so our 2018 federal program year is September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019. So it's really reporting on our community development block grant funds and our home investment partnership, which are the 2 federal sources that we manage. So it's reporting on, and I can provide some of those statistics this afternoon, the number of habitat houses that were completed, the number of folks who benefited from public services that were funded, and public facilities that were funded through these grants. So it is primarily a reporting of statistics and facts, and correct.
And we have to have a public hearing before we submit it to HUD.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? Gary? All right.
So for your consideration, you have two actions. One is to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony, you have an action which will be for you to approve submitting the plan.
All right. Then the second public hearing is revenue resolutions.
Yeah. So before walk you through a little more in detail the resolutions, I would like to introduce an amendment for this afternoon, because you have in the agenda, you have 2 actions. One is to close the public hearing, and the other one is for your consideration to approve the 2018 property tax levy. There are 2 resolutions associated with that, which requires 2 different actions. So I will introduce an amendment for you to add 2 different actions as opposed to have a single action.
Okay.
That's number 1 that we'll bring as an amendment for your consideration this afternoon. Secondly, we have been receiving some public testimony related to this particular matter. This is the, and again, revenues associated with the 2020 budget. And some of the public testimony we have received has been a little bit of a misunderstanding that perhaps this action that you may be taking this afternoon is associated with the courthouse, and that's not accurate. And so let me walk you through a little in detail of the actions that you may be considering this afternoon related to the 2 resolutions.
Thank you.
So the first resolution is 2 pages back and forth. And the first resolution is to increase in property tax revenue, both in dollars and percentage. And this is where you may be taking an action to enact on the additional 1% increase on the property tax. So the actions associated with that, if you flip to the back page, you will be considering approving an increase on the current expense of the property tax levy. That will be mainly the general fund. You will also be taking an action to increase the estimated road property tax levy. Also, estimated revenues increase on the Medic 1 tax levy, and also an increase related to the conservation future tax levy. That's the first ordinance, and this is associated with the additional 1% that you may be taking an action on that increases in property taxes. Early in the year, during your budget discussions, this was brought up to your attention, and at that point, you determined that in order to build the different expenditures associated with the 2020 budget, which you approved early in the year, included an assumption of an additional 1% in property taxes, that's the cap that we have as part of the state law. This has been an action the commissioners have taken over the last few years. As you may recall, back in the 2000s, the legislature put a cap on the increase in property taxes to a maximum of 1%. And you, as a legislative authority, has the option to exercise that authority on a yearly basis, which again the board has taken that option in the last few years. That is the first ordinance, the resolution that you will be considered taking an action. I just want to clarify that you do have an option not to adopt this. You do have an option to say no to the 1%. That will put us in the position as to how we are going to manage the expenditures that you already approved, which included that assumption of the 1%. So I just want to make sure that you do have that option. Any questions for Robin on this first resolution?
I'm sure we do. Time? Okay, go ahead, Gary.
On the first page, and it lists an inflation rate down there, about the fourth paragraph down. It says it's 1.396%.
That's correct. That's the IPD. And just offhand, I can't remember what IPD stands for. It's similar to the CPI. It's an inflation rate. It's the inflation factor. And what the law says is that the legislative body of any taxing jurisdiction can raise the levy to either 1% or the IPD, whichever is less. So we always state the amount of the IPD. This is the IPD that Department of Revenue is certified.
And then the 1% is reflected in the next paragraph.
Right, that's your maximum because the IPD is more than 1%. If the IPD is less than 1%, then you're either limited to that amount or you can take an action that says that the county has extraordinary need and raise it up. But that's yet another resolution. But we don't need to do that this year because the IPD is more than
the
1%.
What does an extraordinary event constitute?
Well,
Just give me an example. I'm just curious why. I mean, we're always in tough shape in the general fund. I'm just curious.
which is exactly what we did in the last 3 resolutions when we needed to raise up the levy to the full 1% rather than the IPD. The extraordinary nature that is in most resolutions, including Thurston's, is that the need is greater than the amount that we can levy.
And when you say the need in most of the counties around the state are faced with the same problem, right?
Almost every jurisdiction, not just counties, but cities, fire districts, library districts, any jurisdiction that's limited to the 1%.
Okay, thank you.
When you said this has been done for the last few years, is that 2, 3, 5, 10? About how many years has this been done where we
Implemented the 1%.
The 1%.
I think since the legislature put a cap, I believe, but we can get that information
Far
to you
back
this
as I
afternoon.
can tell.
far back, so it's been a long time?
Yeah.
Okay. And our budget was built on this 1%?
It was built on the assumption that you would approve the 1% increase.
And so, built on that assumption, then our expenditures built on this increase
Right.
as well?
And part of the presentation that I'll make this afternoon will show that you increase spending by over $1 million, closer to $2 million, but your revenue increase is more like $1 million. And the way you're managing that is to spend down fund balance.
Okay.
Well, we're also stealing out of the road fund, aren't we?
That is part of
And-
it, yes.
and that is
you'll
part of
see
it,
that
though.
in the
I don't think
next
stealing's the
resolution.
word.
That's in the second
And
resolution.
if we didn't approve the 1%, would we add up the numbers in 1, 2, 3, and I mean, the amount of money we'd have to, the funding revenue loss we'd have to cut would drop by $400,000?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. The amount that's in this resolution is a calculated amount, and I'm prepared, if you'd like to spend the time this morning to go through those calculations. I will show them this afternoon as well. But the amount just in the general fund, if you did no increase, would be nearly $400,000 in the general fund alone, is the amount that you.
I'm just trying to get a sense of the scale. I mean, we have a $300 million budget,
Right.
and this is really,
400,000.
even this 1% is, I'm just trying to show that, like, it's a very small amount of the overall county budget.
Yes.
Even increasing the cap to 2% or 3% really wouldn't solve our problem over the long term based on spending patterns and the needs that we've been juggling
That is absolutely true.
over the last, say, decade. So it is a decision we have, but it's something that we routinely do because it's just one small tool we have, but it's a small tool against a very large problem.
Barely keeping up with inflation or cost of.
And so if we,
It's not keeping up.
Not
with
keeping up at
inflation
all, no.
By far, it's not keeping up with inflation.
Not by any stretch.
You have more?
no, I mean, just that if we, I just wanted folks to have a sense, and myself to understand the scale. If this was not adopted, we'd have another $400,000 in the general fund to manage with spending cuts and other funds as well. Would be
Or reduce the ending fund balance.
or reduce, or continue to spend down the reserve.
Anything?
Yes, on page 1 of 3.
I was going to walk you through the next resolution.
That's the next resolution.
That's the next
Are you ready
resolution,
to
so-
go there?
Resolution number 1 is
Okay.
what we
I
discussed.
guess you
Resolution.
don't always have to agree with it, you just understand it, right? That's what's going on.
So go ahead and walk us through it.
Yeah.
So resolution number 2 is you certify to the assessor the total amount of property taxes to be levied and the current amounts for the current expense, the road levy. So if you flip the page to page number 2, gives you what does that really means. On the current expense, we have a total of $41,169,223.99 for Medic 1. Again, is a total of $11,377,519.97. I just want to make sure that that includes the 1%. Okay, that is inclusive of. But that's the total dollar amount that the assessor will be levied. levy next year. The conservation futures has a total of $1,438,989.05. And the county road is $23,580,430.31. Also, this resolution addresses two elements related to the road levy. One is the road diversion of $1.5 million. That's on action number 1 on page number 2. And also number 2 addresses the road levy shift of $3 million. So that will be $4.5 million that will be moving is the road diversion and the road levy shift. At these 2 steps, which is those 2 steps are granted to you, the legislative authority, by law. The $1.5 million road levy is intended to fund traffic law enforcement, and the $3 million associated with the action of moving from the property tax is intended for general government. They have no restrictions. That is why you have 2 different actions on this resolution related to the road fund. So the total allocation to the road fund, if you take the $23,580,438.31 minus the 4.5, they will be deposited $19,080,430.31 to the road fund. So that's what the second resolution does for you this afternoon.
Okay, anything?
There is a timeline associated with this, commissioners, and the revenue aspects of the upcoming budget needs to be taken an action by you by the end of November. And today is the last meeting that you have as a board, and that is why I'm spending the time just to make sure that we go through this process a little more in detail. And again, this afternoon I will introduce an amendment to this item to include 2 different options. Motions, actually will be 3. One is for you to consider the public hearing. The next will be for you to approve a resolution including the 1% property tax, whatever you'd like to do with that. And the second is the resolution for the assessor to levy those taxes I just explained in the second resolution. I do have on the script notes this afternoon for you to have a discussion between closing the public hearing before you take an action, give you the opportunity to amend any of the portions of the resolution as you see fit.
Okay. Do you have any questions on this?
No. Not that we can answer, I guess, today.
Okay. So this will come back this afternoon then, at the public hearing.
You really dialed up an exciting meeting for today.
Boy, didn't you just.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, that takes us to the agenda for next Tuesday. However, it's almost 10 after. We're going to take a 5-minute bio break and then come back. So we'll be back at 10, whatever, 10 was 5 minutes. 10:15, we have 10:15, we'll be back. Thank you. All right, welcome back. It is still November 26, 2019. We're continuing on with the agenda setting work session. We're jumping into the agenda for the BoCC meeting for Tuesday next. That's December 3rd, 2019. And we'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock or thereabouts. And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Ty Menser, approval of the agenda and board meeting minutes from today. And we jump right into presentations. Public Defense, introducing a new Public Defense employees.
Yes, Patrick O'Connor, the Director of Public Defense, will be introducing new employees. It will be, all of them are Defense Attorneys 1, Eric Schuler, Sarah Stabenow, Richard Peterson, and Zila Jones. And then he will give a little bit of a background related to those new employees in the county.
Wonderful. Good, okay. Any comment?
No.
Nope. Okay, then presentation, introduction of another employee, Romero.
Yeah, I will have the pleasure to introduce in front of the board Jenica Machado. She is our new Economic Development Manager for the county, and in fact, she's just sitting right back there. Say hi to Jenica.
Good morning, Jenica. Welcome to the family. Anything? Nope. Yes? Okay. Opportunity for the public to address the board. We'll wait and see.
Wait and see.
County manager's update. We'll wait and see. Agenda item number 3 is consent items A through F. The first one, 3A, is human resources, personnel rules and policy amending.
Yeah, you had a briefing from your director, Maria Ponte, Director of Human Resources, where she presented to you changes to the Thurston County Personnel Rules, Chapters 3, 6, and 7, and this is related to the on-call assignments from non-represented employees. She provided a briefing. There is on-call outside of work, on-call assignments for those represented employees, that will have a way to compensate that. And this particular change is to address the same functions, but for those who are not covered by a union contract.
Okay.
And this is just formalizing that step.
Anything further on that?
No.
Gary?
No.
3B, Public Utility District Memorandum of Understanding.
Yes, I give you a brief heads up that I will bring this item for your consideration. We currently have a memorandum of understanding with the Thurston Public Utility District. And this particular memorandum ends on December 31st, 2019. This proposed amendments to extend that same MOU on the same terms and same conditions. We just changed the date to December 31st, 2020, an extension of 1 year.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
What happened to that widening of right-of-ways and such?
Yeah, so,
Proposal earlier?
and that is the reason why I extended, recommended extending this, this MOU to the end of next year to give enough opportunity for the board of the commissioners of the Thurston Public Utility District to come and have a conversation with the board to see what areas of the MOU what they would like to change, or any particular items they would like to address before you.
So at this point, just the date is
This
the
is
only
just
amendment?
extending, nothing else changes on the MOU. It's just extending the date of the ending of the
Okay.
MOU.
Good.
Okay.
So the conversations will begin hopefully in the spring of next year, if there's any changes.
And then 3C is approval of work session summaries, and there's numerous ones. So we'll get through those. 3D, Public Health and Social Services, a tenant lease with capital recovery.
This is a extended 1-year lease with capital recovery for $3,200 a month. And this is a space that we lease from this outfit on 1000 Cherry Street Southeast, downtown Olympia. This is the space that we use for the syringe exchange program. And the $3,200 a month includes all the services, including janitorial services, utilities, is all inclusive of all the services. And it's just adding an extension to that. And it's already included on the budget, by the way.
Okay. Anything?
No.
Anything?
Just
Yeah.
one question. Is this comparable in square footage, the dollar amount? to any other commercial activity going on?
On
I mean, is it
There's not re-
average or
This is not really a
standard?
commercial activity, what is going on in this building.
Well, the square footage
Social
is what I'm
services.
wondering about.
I
We're
think
leasing so many square
I
feet.
think we get a pretty good deal on the space that we serve.
When the sheriff leases, you know, it's a way better deal usually, I see.
But it all depends how many square footage you lease.
Okay.
All right, 3E, Echo is CPED, and it's the South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group contract.
For your consideration is for you to, first of all, do a sole source professional services contract. It's not a single source, so we'll change the language on the motion. It's a sole source. And Thurston County was awarded a grant from the Department of Ecology through the National Estuary Program, the NEP, to develop an intensive program to motivate voluntary restoration and riparian areas. And the South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group has been an active participant in implementing those activities. So this particular contract is to use the grant and get into a sole source agreement with the South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group for the amount of $11,000. And that is for your proposal. Also includes an additional 10% for any deviations within that contract.
Okay, anything?
And what budget is that $11,000?
It's a grant from the Department of Ecology.
Department of Ecology grant?
Yes, Department of Ecology.
So it's pass-through funds?
It's a grant, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
3F, our financial services voucher list, we'll go through that when we get them. Department item agenda number 4 is emergency services BLS contract.
This contract with the 12 different fire agencies in Thurston County, which includes the West Thurston Regional Fire Authority, Southeast Thurston Fire Authority, Lacey Fire District 3, East Olympia Fire District, South Bay Fire District, McLean, Black Clay Fire District, United Fire District, Reef Phoenix Creek District, Ball Hills, Bucota, and Olympia Fire Department Storm Waters as well. And this is to a yearly event to provide the basic life support, also known as the BLS contracts. This is a total cost of an annual cost of $1,043,759. And this is already included on the Medic 1 budget, the you approve in terms of the expenditures. And this also has been approved by the Medic 1 board.
It says it automatically renews every year up to 5 years. So we won't see this again, or does it still come back to us for approval?
It will have to come back to you because of the
money.
budget authority.
Right.
Yeah, as
Okay.
part of the, yeah.
I saw that automatically renews. Well, not necessarily. All right, agenda item number 5, public health, social services, veteran shelter contracts.
So this motion is a little bit interesting. It has 2 actions in here. And one is to reduce the Salvation Army 2019 contract by $20,000 and an increase by the same amount to the Catholic Community Services for the 2019. The reason of the reduction on the Salvation Army, as you know, they're going through a remodel right now and they don't have the ability to provide the services. In this particular contract is to provide services to homeless veterans. And the Catholic Community Services is in the position to get additional money and provide additional services to our homeless veterans. That is really the action for your consideration, reducing $20,000 of the 2019 contract with the Salvation Army and increasing by the same amount the contract with the Catholic Community Services for 2019. Mark Moffett is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
I'm looking at the
Come on up, Mark.
looking at the time duration. This says 2019. So we're almost at the end of 2019.
Yes, sir.
We're making this shift. Have the services been provided, and
They have not been provided, so this is proactive. Catholic Community Services have been picking up a lot of the slack that Salvation Army has kind of dropped off because of remodeling, and so come fourth quarter, they're going to be over. So I want to make sure that we have enough to give them so they continue the services for the veterans.
Okay, so the amount that's reflected here is sort of reflective of the fourth quarter, or?
Yeah, it's going to be the fourth quarter, because they used up everything pretty much through the third quarter, more than they expected because of the overflow.
Your name's been mentioned, Mark, but you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, Mark
That's
Moffett, Public Health and Social Services Program Manager.
And can you tell us, I don't know if you have this, you may, how many homeless vets we have in our community, and how many will be assisted by this?
From the last point in time, homeless veterans in Thurston County make up about 8%, so it's about 50 veterans in our community homeless. So far, Catholic Community Services has provided about 700 bed nights this year alone. Salvation Army provided for the first quarter and a half about 160 bed nights.
Okay. Good, thank you, sir. Any questions?
I just want to thank Mark for looking out for our vets. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our vets.
Thank you, sir.
Agreed. Good job. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mark. 5B, approval of the 2021 Thurston Mason DD millage funded contracts.
Yeah, this is related to the Developmental Disabilities Program. Back in September 2017, the Board of County Commissioners approved the release of requests for proposals where we are going to be allocating to providers related to the developmental disabilities. And that was issued. The funds which support this program is coming from the millage funds. And this proposal goes from 2020 to 2021 is a biennial budget. This also includes services in Thurston and Mason counties. The millage fund for Thurston County is $375,000 and Mason County is $95,000. So the proposal for you is to allocate the contracts for providing those services, and again for the developmental disabilities to the Arc of Washington, Protected PE Services, Morningside, Kukua, Arc of the Peninsulas, South Sound Parent and Parent, Senior Services of South Sound, Special Olympics, Coastal Community Actions, and Monica Mayer. I don't know what that is, but certainly Annalise Cole, who is managing this program, currently is present, and she is more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Again, this contract goes from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021.
Do you have a question?
I really don't have any questions.
I don't
I
either.
appreciate her work.
Thank you, Annalise. All right. County Manager, Tourism Promotion Area.
Yeah, this proposal for your consideration, it does two things. Is extend the contract that we have with the Olympia Lacey Thurston Lacey Tumwater Visitor Convention Bureau, also known as the BCV. As a matter of history, back in October 2013, at the request of the local hotels, Thurston County entered into a local agreement with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Yelm to form a tourism promotion area, also known as the TPA. The TPA is authorized the collection of $2 per room per day by hotels with more than 50 rooms. The revenue may be used solely for increasing tourism and convention business in Thurston County. The county is authorized to hire an agent to manage the TPA and support the Hotelier Advisory Committee. In 2014, with the agreement of the cities, the board selected the Visitors and Convention Bureau to provide the services. The current contract with the BCV ends on December 31st, 2018. This proposal extends, which the contract allows for that extension, to December 31st, 2022. And also, you will be approving the budget for the BCB for 2020 as part of this function. You may recall Shauna Stewart, the Executive Director of the BCB, came and briefed the board in terms of the 2020 budget, and this is just the next step in that process.
Got it. Anything?
Comfortable with her presentation?
Very much so. Anything?
Just a quick question. Do the tribal hotels' interests, where they have hotels, any of them contribute? I know the
No.
new one down in
No.
Grand Mound, I
Yep.
mean, that's been adjudicated. They don't- Okay. Okay.
That takes us to the end of that agenda next Tuesday. And then there's a public hearing at about 3 o'clock. There's two of them, in fact. And number one is related to the new chapter of public records disclosure.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner. You heard from Karen Hurwitz. She is the attorney leading the public records unit. Maybe 3 weeks ago, they were suggesting proposed changes to Thurston County Code 2.130010, and really start consolidating all the public records aspects of within the code. So you will be receiving public testimony related to this proposed change, and also for your consideration will be is two actions. One is to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony, that you have the option to adopt an ordinance changing the Thurston County Code related to the public records. The second public hearing is related to, for you to take public testimony related to proposed changes to Title 25. That's related to impact fees. And as you may recall, the actions of the proposed changes to the Title 25 is to include the North Thurston School District as part of the collection of the impact fees. And it's not, that's the last school district that will be part of this collection process. Again, for your consideration is two actions. One is to close the public hearing, and again, based on the public testimony that you might receive at this public hearing, you may consider approving the changes to Title 25.
Okay.
Good.
Do you know if anybody is going to be here from the school district to comment on this?
I don't have any information on that.
And that's the sole change that this action is
Yep,
going to...
it's just adding the North Thurston School District.
Okay.
So 3B, public hearing next week is CPED, amendment of the Title 25 impact fees.
I just described that, Commissioner.
Oh, you're talking about the, okay. Thought we were still on A.
No, sorry, I moved into.
Well, you jumped right in there and
Yes,
skipped right over, okay.
sorry.
Good, that takes care
Do
of
you
that.
have any questions of any of the two items?
I don't know, no, thank you.
I was trying to move forward on the.
Well, you're moving quicker than I am.
Cognizant on the time constraints that you have.
So with that in mind, proclamations and awards are none to deal with. Advisory boards and commissions we're going to put off. And legislative update, there's nothing. Briefing on public hearing decisions pending, none. Is there anything burning from PIO? Any burning questions for the PIO?
No.
For Megan?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay, we're dispense with that. Move right into the commissioner items. We've got 3 to get to before we hit the executive session. First is salary commissions for elected officials.
Yeah, this is more of a heads up. You also may have read the article in the Olympian over the weekend. And this is really to make you aware. The Salary Commission has already provided some initial recommendations of adjustments to the salaries of the elected officials here in the county. And they will be holding a public hearing on December 9, 2019, here in room 152 at 6 in the afternoon. And soon thereafter, they will be, depending on the public testimony, they will be providing a formal recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to adjust the salaries of elected officials. There is a nuance on that. And they will include salary recommendations to increase for the Board of County Commissioners. You will not have that option to take an action. That recommendation will go directly to the auditor. You do have an option to accept, revise, or deny any salary recommendations from the salary commissions to other elected officials. And that is a yearly event. So they propose changes to all the elected officials, including you, is proposed an increase of 3.8%. That will include the assessor, the auditor, the clerk, the coroner, the treasurer, as well as the Board of County Commissioners. The proposal, subject to the public hearing, includes revisions also to the prosecuting attorney. And the prosecuting attorney recommendation is an increase of 10.67%. And there's a little bit of nuances in terms of the prosecuting attorney, because the prosecuting attorney salary is related to the Superior Court judge's salary. And since there's a little bit of lapse between the state fiscal year, because the salary for the judges, you may recall, were adjusted early in the year. And this is just a little bit of a gap in time in which you may take an action to adjust a prosecuting attorney's salary on the upcoming year.
And again, 50% of that is paid by the state. 50% of the prosecuting attorney's salary.
No, this is all general fund. The judges are paid portions by the state.
By the state, not the PA. Okay,
No, that's general fund.
all right.
The judges are covered a portion by the state, yes.
It's just his salary's tied to that.
Yeah. And also you have the sheriff is proposed to be increased by 7%. And that is what, I just want to highlight that to you. And again, after December 9th, it will be a formal recommendation by the Salary Commission. I do have already an item in general terms for December 10th for you to take an action or not. Just going to give you that option on December 10th. And considering that perhaps December 10th is going to be your last formal Board of County Commissioners meeting for the year. But if need be, we can always accommodate another board meeting for you to take an action if you don't feel comfortable with that.
Do you have anything on the Salary Commission?
Just to clarify, we have to take an action. If the effect of us not taking an action is that the commissioner's salary would go up and nobody else's would.
Yes.
So I don't think that's feasible or realistic or appropriate. So we do need to take an action, even if it's some adjustment to the recommendations.
And by law, we don't vote on our own
Nope.
salary. Commissioner?
Just a clarification on, you're going to tell us something on the 10th after,
Yeah, on December 10th,
Yeah,
I do
after
have an
the-
item
right?
for you to take an action on the recommendations of the Salary Commission.
And they're going to make that recommendation on the 9th?
Yep.
So we really don't know what we're going to talk about on the 10th? Is that what you're saying?
We'll review the agenda in the morning.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I said. If you don't feel comfortable on the 10th, we certainly can accommodate another meeting for you to take that action.
Is there any particular reason why this, the inflation rate in an earlier resolution is 1.3? Was there justification that went along with why they raised the salary percentage 3.8? And then I don't understand the CPI
So
is
the
different versus the IPD.
So the CPI is not the only element the Salary Commission considers an increase in proposing the increase in salary. The Salary Commission considered a number of factors, including the salary of elected officials of other counties, similar to Thurston County, the cost of living increases, and the salary compression or inversion in the elected officials. The Salary Commission must, those are the two elements. Really is the comparables with other counties, like size and complexity of Thurston County, as well as the cost of living increase. And the CPI, I think right now is about 2.5.
2.4.
2.4.
It was 2.4, that's what we based our employees' salary
And that's the
decreases on.
difference that exists between the 1.3 and the 2.4, is that?
Well, the 1.3, that's the IPD, that's the implicit price deflator. I remembered what it stands
Okay.
for.
Stop, hold on.
Okay.
Yes, implicit price deflator, and
Implicit.
it is a factor of inflation. It just looks at a different set of things than when the feds are calculating the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. They're calculated differently.
Okay.
But I went to the hearing because I was encouraged to go and just provide input to the Salary Commission on what we do. And I didn't advocate for anything. I just said, here's what I do and, kind of the parameters of the job. Other elected officials made more arguments about, comparables and, they made more of an advocacy for their compensation.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out there. It's not just, they don't just plug in numbers, they consider the information they get and they're permitted to decide what the appropriate salary level is.
And just to give you additional information, not all counties have a salary commission. There's only a few they have salary commissions, which is composed of citizens. They will provide those services to you. Other counties have the approach of tie that to the judge's salary. So as a default, it's just given to whatever the salary of the judges are set, Superior Court judges, and then the rest of the elected officials will be aligned to the salaries of that. It's not 100%. Some counties may choose to be 75%, 60%, whatever that is. At some point, if you like, next year, I can bring a report as to what other counties do in terms of percentages, splits. Some use the salary commission, which is this is the result of their effort. The others is pretty straightforward. They're tied to the salary of the Superior Court judges, which is set by the state.
I support the use of the Salary Commission because it takes it away from, out of the purview of the commissioners as much as possible. And I would encourage any citizens that are concerned, we have open seats in the Salary Commission and they are willing, we can let them, they can weigh in directly because we've had, a couple of open seats now for some time.
And also 2 weeks ago, you changed the county code requiring a supermajority, 60% supermajority of all the members of the Salary Commission to come up with a particular recommendation to the board.
All right, anything before we move on?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So perhaps next year, we'll chat about it. Number 2, local consent for the refugee resettlement. That's the letter we received.
Yeah, I don't expect to spend too much time on this. Commissioners, you receive a letter, and this is from the Department of Social Health Services related to a refugee resettlement and executive order 13888.
Did you read that?
Is this federal or state?
This is an executive order, it's a federal executive order, and what it does is it's requesting for you to take a local consent of aligning the refugees' activities in the county to the executive order. The governor has already signed the consent form on behalf of the state of Washington, but I believe there is a request or perhaps a requirement for local governments to take similar actions. Attached to this packet is a form letter. Obviously, we as a county, we don't provide those services, but there's a nonprofits. They provide those services, and the list of nonprofits are on the backside of this sheet as well. Something to be clear, this is not by any means getting to the point of be a sanctuary county, because any type of refugee who may be eligible for federal funds for relocation, they have to be legal residents, and that is the key. Is well stated in this letter. So I'll touch base with Elizabeth on this to go through the detail of what this is. This is just as an FYI for you at this point. If there's any And if there's any urgency or perhaps a formal action for you to take on this consent letter, then I will bring this item back to you at a later date. At this point, it's just FYI, just to make sure that we acknowledge receiving this letter.
Anything?
FYI, I'd like to.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the time frame that we're required to meet here on signature?
So he said the last part, said, because I have, meaning Ms. Sarah Peterson from the state, because I have the duty to organize this process, I ask that you please take an action as soon as possible to meet the internal deadline. No internal deadline was provided.
It says 12/20
I'm
in
sorry.
bold.
Oh,
Yeah,
12/20.
yeah.
So December. So we still have a month. Sorry. Yeah.
12/20 is they're asking.
So we'll hear from Elizabeth
Yep.
before.
We'll hear from you, from Elizabeth
Okay.
and myself.
Keep Washington working.
Yeah, Commissioner Minzer requested to have a briefing, and Elizabeth is here to give the Keep Washington Working. This related to the ICE arrest, a continuation of that. I have attached to you in your packet a couple of pieces of information. Okay, one is a policy the Superior Family and District Court have already stated, and the first one is the outside policy related to the addressing the ICE arrest that happened early in the year. On the second page is an internal policy by both Superior and District Courts related to how they need to really for the security officers, to how they need to manage, some of that. That was one of the items as a result of as you may remember, the meeting that we had. The Superior Court was going to develop those two policies, one external, one internal. They have developed this. I'm not planning to read those policies. I will leave it up to you. There is really the Board of Judges, Superior Court and District Court have approved those policies. This really is not an ask, but the commissioners to comment on this. This is just informational to you. Also, I have attached, I recently received a letter dated November 21st, 2019, and this is from the Department of Justice to the Chief Justice Walters, which is the Chief Justice in Oregon.
Where's this letter?
Attached to this
Attached to
packet.
what?
Or this packet of information that I have.
Oh, it's attached to the court policy.
Yeah, in the back.
Okay.
And this letter is addressed to the Chief Justice Walters, which is the Chief Justice on the State Supreme Court in Oregon, and Chief Justice Fairhurst, who is the Chief Justice here in the Supreme Court of the State of Washington. In so many different words, my understanding of this letter is the Department of Justice is saying that perhaps they must cooperate with the ICE performance of duties on issuing arrests, and encouraging not to pass any type of policies or perhaps actions that will prevent any type of civil arrests within the courthouse boundaries. So this is very lengthy, and also attached to this letter is some examples of incidents caused by undocumented individuals. So this is just the framework. I'm not expecting you to read that letter today. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. And Elizabeth is here to answer any questions related to this item that you may have.
Questions? Let's go to Gary first.
Well, just to frame this from my perspective, there were two reasons why I asked for this agenda item, separate kind of, they're related, springing from our last meeting in September. The first was that we had protocols that were circulated at that meeting that were developed by the Immigrant Solidarity Network, Central Justice, Northwest Justice Project, ACLU of Washington, a whole coalition of groups. We were just seeing them for the first time, and we said that we would review them and decide whether any of them were appropriate. Then I think, so it's been sitting on my desk, and I think we were, since many of those relate to the court policy, I was assuming that we were kind of and the court was telling us they were in the midst of developing a policy. I was assuming we were waiting to see what the court did, because maybe the court would decide to address all of this. The court now has sent its policy out a week or so ago. It covers a little bit of what they asked for, but not everything. So the question is, so I've been approached by some groups, community groups, that want a sort of a report out from the board on whether we've reviewed these and what we're going to do, if anything. So I just need to sort of advance that ball. Questions that they have that I also have are, you know, to what extent are the policies that they're proposing within the purview of the court and only the court versus the Board of County Commissioners or someone else? They were asking, you know, we know that the judges control policy in the courtroom. I would guess they control security within the hallways of the court building. Do they also control what happens on the court campus? Is court policy dictate that, or does the commissioners have the authority to implement policies that would control that type of activity on the campus? So that was a question that I don't have the answer to, and so that was one whole piece. The second whole piece was the discussion we had on Keep Washington Working, and the section that said all local and state enforcement agencies must explain to citizens in writing the individual's right to refuse to disclose their nationality, citizenship, or immigration status. And at the time we met, you had said you were working with the sheriff's office on that. I've heard not a peep about it, so I want to make sure that we are providing those written notices that the law requires us to be doing, and see where we're at on that. So those were the two reasons why I asked for this item.
Yes. So to answer your last question first, regarding basically the consular notification.
Right in the microphone, Elizabeth, please, thank you.
A little closer.
Just closer.
There you go.
Oh, there,
Thank you.
sorry. So the consular notification piece, which is complicated and was of concern to the jail staff, because that's where the first contact usually comes in. We just received information earlier this month that the jail has had discussion with public defense, and what their plan is they're going to enter a memorandum of understanding with public defense, and public defense will take on the responsibility of advising the criminal defendants of their consular rights. And why that's a win-win is because one of the concerns that the jail had was that they felt like they were being put into a position of providing legal advice, and they didn't feel comfortable with that. And King County had developed a practice where defense counsel and the prosecuting attorney's office took that role on. So what I understand that has just recently been negotiated is that public defense will be taking on that aspect of Keep Washington Working, which is very confusing and of concern to the local citizens group.
And I'm hoping, or I would assume, that to be compliant, that MOU would ensure that public defense gets to provide those advisements prior to any questions being asked by our jail staff.
Right. Right.
Regardless of whether they're booking the person into custody before there's a public defender available.
Right. So those are details that could be addressed in the MOU, and those are appropriate guardrails to have, because there are booking processes which we're still getting information from the sheriff on past practices. My understanding for booking practices has been to ask for nationality, origin of birth, things like that. So those are details that could be worked out in the MOU, but the good thing is that the jail is being proactive about getting a process in place, that relieves the burden on their staff from being put into a quasi-advisor role. And public defense is clearly on board advocating for their clients, and but your details are important, and I think they can be addressed in that one.
Yeah, I mean, your right to refuse to disclose is meaningless if you've already disclosed. So
Exactly.
there has to be a timing
Right.
delineation. Okay.
Right, I totally agree. With your other question about, the board's authority and aspects of, what you can do with court policy or sheriff's policies or things like that, I mean, I think you know already that the court, it has their own authority to take action, which they have done. You, the board, really can't dictate to them what to do. The same with the sheriff. You can't really dictate to the sheriff, do A, B, and C. I mean, if they don't, maybe there'll be litigation and then you get involved because you represent the county. But in terms of telling them how to do their business and how to comply with this act, that's not really the purview of the board. The board clearly has purview over, you have purview over other areas, like any contracts we do that might, whether it's in the public health arena, that's the main one I can think of right now, that takes in personal information about people. We can develop contract provisos to say, you may not use this data or you may not ask for this information. So that's a contracting piece that we can put in place for any people that we work with and for our own staff in terms of when they're taking in personal information about people.
What about this issue about the court, right out here in the courtyard? Is that we're in the city of Olympia, but it's county property. Sheriff take care of that? Olympia Police take care of that? Court staff, because it's the courthouse complex? They were asking me, I just didn't really know the answer.
Before you answer, it's critical. I just want to let you know that this is easily going to be a 30 to 45-minute conversation, and you don't clearly have enough information back from the sheriff and contractor. And I haven't even gotten to my other seatmate yet with concerns or such, and we've got to push into an executive session. Is this something we can set up for a standalone briefing so we can devote considerable time to it? Because I don't want to cut this short. This is too important to hammer out.
Right. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
I'll get you real quick.
That's okay. I'll just wait then.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
We'll just have another discussion. I mean, there's a lot of details and we can go on a long time.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will schedule that.
Thank you.
Perhaps it will
Just
be...
maybe one comment.
One jump in, yeah.
As we develop this policy and move into another discussion on this, could you bring with, anytime the court says it's going to do this, or the sheriff should, or we should, any RCW that gives that authority to either the court or to us? Would you bring that information so we have that in?
Sure, that will be in the Keep Washington.
And like Ty asked, where does the authority of the court, how far does it extend? What kind of curtilage do they have authority over? The courtroom or the hall, the entrance of the building? Where? Where does that start and stop?
And under what RCW is for me.
And then another question for this thing is this letter, which I only had a chance to skim, how does that affect the state's lawsuit or has it, and all of that I'd like to discuss as well.
So that's actually the comment I wanted to make. You have legislation and you have litigation. And the legislation is directing the courts and the law enforcement and us to develop policies to deal with immigration issues. Then we have, and ICE is disagreeing with our policies. For example, the court policy. They're making it very clear with that letter that the courts are misguided in their policy that they're adopting, even though the policy is consistent with the legislation. So the way to resolve that conflict, because ICE is looking at it this way, we're looking at it this way, is litigation. The Attorney General's office did try to negotiate with ICE to keep them away from the courthouse. They didn't voluntarily withdraw. So I anticipate that these big courthouse issues are going to be resolved by litigation. Litigation has not been filed by the state of Washington yet. I understand they're working on it actively, and that's all I can say right now.
Yeah, I'm confused by that. I mean, like the transit agencies put a lawsuit together on 976 in 48 hours.
No, they've been working.
I know, but
For a
the
long
issue is
time.
continuing to be important. I mean,
And that's what-
time is of the essence.
Yes.
This is what it is.
So any questions you might have, we can email you questions that we'd like to have you come back with.
Sure.
Okay, email you questions, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, with that, we are ending the agenda setting work session, and we're going to move into an executive session. So thanks for joining us this morning.